Welcome to Compose Yourself, the podcast where academic writing meets self-discovery for the students at the Chicago School.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Cindy.
Whether you're crafting your first essay or refining your voice as a writer, we're here to guide you through the art of composition.
From brainstorming to final drafts, we'll break down the tools and techniques to help you think critically, write effectively, and express yourself with confidence.
So, grab a pen, open your mind, and
compose yourself. Well, welcome to Module 7 and the final podcast for English 100. Yeah. In this episode, we're going to be talking about remixes, which is an assignment that you're going to be doing here at the end of the course. And then sort of what the modes of remix allow us to do and what their constraints are, how they're limited, and why we might want to remix our work. And then we're going to just take a moment to reflect on how we've grown as academic writers through this course and how that's going to translate into your continuing on in your degree program. So let's start with remixing. When we remix something, we take something that we've already created, right? Like your paper, and we adapt it to a new rhetorical situation. So that means like thinking about a new audience, thinking about a new purpose. And the key is that it has to resemble the original, right? We have to be able to see that through line. Like you can't create a remix that doesn't really even link back to the original thing. There has to be a through line that unites them. That thesis sort of still has to be present, there has to be a representation of what you were about when you wrote the original thing, right? So, Jason, what are some examples that come to mind when you think about remixing academic work?
Oh, goodness. I think if you ever, and I really hope all of our students do have the chance to go to a conference. I've never been to the APA conference, but they have it every single year. I really highly recommend it. They can be a lot of fun, but they can also show the people who don't know how to remix really well. Because what they will do, so at a conference, you'll have all of these professionals, all of these academics there, and they wrote the scholarly papers, like the journal articles or the books that you will eventually be reading, hopefully. Um, and we've all read it, we've read their work, but then at the conference, I'm not there to read the work. I'm there to be with other people. So maybe it takes the form of like a Q&A, and they will sit up there. Maybe they read just their abstract, talk really briefly about their results and conclusion, and then they give the audience a chance to have a conversation or dialogue with them. Those are a lot of fun. I've also seen some, where it is more like a PowerPoint presentation, a slideshow of some kind, even interactive demos. I've seen where, maybe there's like infographics or artwork, something, or, like some kind of computer program. So you can kind of see their research in action. All of those are great ways to kind of where they've remixed a paper that they wrote, and are presenting it in a new situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're infinitely more enjoyable than the paper readings where somebody just sits there and reads their paper out loud to you.
Right.
That's what comes to my mind. What about you?
I think that the best example of remixing something is TED Talks. I mean, everybody kind of
Ooh,
knows what a TED Talk is, but it's like usually these are thought leaders. So, like people who wrote a great book, or they gave a great course, or they did some awesome research, right? And they've got like, what is it, 15 minutes maximum? I can't remember but there are parameters around TED Talks. So let's say it has to be this long. You can only have this many slides or whatever. Like it's very limited. It's a tight box that they have to get in. And that means they have to maybe take years of research or hundreds of pages of text and condense it down into this tiny presentation about what they think is the most important and engaging. And to me, that's the ultimate remix challenge is to create a TED Talk out of your book. Because you're not going to get up there and read your whole book. So you have to be able to remix it into this presentation that gives people an idea of why they should read your book in this tiny amount of time. So the key to our remix too in this class is that it's not going to be enough for it to just be like take the text and then put it in a shorter condensed text version, right? We want them to do something that's multimodal. So
great.
multimodality really fits nicely into this remix situation because it really helps you think about the different ways that you could change up your paper. So when we say that something is multimodal, what do we mean by that?
So I would encourage everybody to review their readings about mode, but we're just thinking about those things like, linguistic, which is words or text, aural, which is kind of sound, visual, things we see. Then there's gestural and spatial, but the point being is that you're not using just one. Like a paper that you write, you're using words. Or if you're taking a photograph, you're using visual. Or if you're creating a song, you're using oral or audio. Now in multimodality, you're bringing more than one of those things together.
Hmm.
So this would be like a photo essay, but maybe you've written some words under it,
Hmm.
and maybe you've added a song. You don't have to use just two. You could incorporate many different modalities, as long as there's kind of an intention behind it.
Right. I think that's good advice. Like an infographic has lots of words, but it's also like a visual artist piece because you have to figure out how
Mhm.
do I present that. Usually you'll see like statistics and stuff on these, but they present it in a totally different way. So it's very visual and it draws your eye to different places. So that to me is still multimodal because it might be
Yep.
mostly text, but there's also picture element and spatial elements.
I was going to say,
How
and
much
there's like
text is on
spatial
this
there.
page? What color is it? How is it how's it oriented on the page? So all of those are part of multimodality as well. So you might also need to think about the rhetorical appeals that you're using. When we switch into multimodality, right? Or we're remixing something that we've done before, we're talking about a new audience and a new purpose. So scholarly writing, you're assuming the audience and the purpose that's given to you in that autoethnography assignment sheet. They're going to be writing in that way. But now we're asking them to think about who could you present this to? Somebody at the Chicago School, is it a student? Like who you're talking to and how they're getting that information are going to influence whether you appeal to ethos, pathos, logos in a new situation. Um, there's this term that I'm thinking of that's called credibility by design. So what do you think that means? How does that come into play when we're thinking about these new modes and new appeals?
I would say that there's two big things to consider here. First is that even though we're in a new rhetorical situation, there is still that element of formality and professionalism,
Mhm.
right? So I think that, I'm a terrible artist. But I can still use the design features or all of the assistant tools or templates or, even maybe AI to help make my PowerPoint presentation look a little better. Because if it looks like something that a second grader made and there is a yellow background with neon green text and nobody can read it, before my audience even looks at that, they are going to judge me. They're going to assess me and say, oh, this information is not good, even if my information is fantastic, all based purely upon the design. But the
Right.
flip side of that is that there are also kind of manipulative ways that you can use design. And so I'm thinking of things like, TikToks or YouTube in particular is really bad about this, where it'll say, something like explosive news, bombshell report, bum, 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 end of the world. And you see like that intro and that clip. And then you start watching the video and it's just some person yammering for 20 minutes and you don't even know what they're talking about. It has no relation to that kind of, intro clip that they use to grab your attention. So I
Hmm.
think there's both concerns, making it professional enough, but using it in an ethical, responsible way to
Hmm.
show your audience that I am trustworthy, I am credible, I am professional, and the information I have in here is relevant to my audience.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
do you think?
I think those are good points. And I think that this is one of the reasons, like when you said, I'm not an artist. Okay. So I think that's why we're telling students in this assignment to like use some tools then. We're not telling them you
Hey,
can't use AI. We're telling them go for it. Use Canva, use Sway, use ChatGPT to help you, use AI images, whatever is going to help you get your ideas out there and kind of work through that multimodality sort of situation. Do it. Like this is your chance to be creative in a new way because I'm not super creative with visual art either. So maybe one of our students who's not can rely on one of those tools to help them sort of get familiar with how to do that. But I think that's why we're really focusing the grading of this assignment on that short artist or composer statement that they're going to write that accompanies their multimodal remix, is because we just want them to talk to us about, like, why did you make those choices? Why did you choose to make a sway presentation, or why did you choose to make a cartoon to portray the message of your autoethnography? Why did you like the choices that they made? We're not asking them to make those all themselves. Like, say ChatGPT or whatever tool you use makes the cartoon for you, but it's your idea and you're prompting it to do that. Then in your artist statement, you're going to tell us, why did you prompt it to do those things? Why was that meaningful for you? What
Right.
appeals were you trying to get through? So that's why the grade is really based on, like, how do you argue for the choices that you made? And the choices that you make might be those prompts. If you're using AI, it's the prompts you're giving it that are helping you make that new thing. Um, so I really think that this remix is sort of like great evidence of academic growth through this class. Because if you can prompt the tool or create something that responds in a totally new way to a different situation, um, a different discourse community, even, then you're really showing that you understand the elements of the rhetorical situation, that you understand the elements of rhetorical appeals, that you've really taken all of that information and condensed it down. Um, so how do you think this shows this new academic writer identity when we do a remix like this?
I think you definitely hit the nail on the head with showing that you understand how to identify and respond to the rhetorical situation, and you can use these strategies. Um, but then I'm going to go back to my example about a conference or something that you mentioned earlier, is just that you also are going to be doing this throughout the rest of your academic program. You will have a teacher who will say, hey, maybe do a short write-up, um, or maybe just give me your thesis, do an experiment, pull some data, but now I want you to present this as a speech. So there's going to be
Right.
a lot of different situations where you're going to have to do things other than as just a standard written essay, and knowing how to use all of these tools and skills while still having kind of that essence of you, that credibility, that's going to be really important,
I also think these skills are really going to carry through to English 200 as we head into this next
right?
section of our English composition courses here at the Chicago School. Our students are going to build on these skills, especially that understanding of the rhetorical situation, how to write for purpose, how to write for a specific audience, how to use APA to establish your credibility and to guide your citation. All of those skills are still going to come into play, perhaps more in English 200. What do you want to say to our students finally about their going into English 200?
Personally, I'm a little biased, but I will say I think English 200 is one of my favorite courses that I teach. And the reason for that is that, in English 100, we have taken, all of you students, you're from everywhere. You're from every walk of life, every background. Maybe you just graduated high school, or maybe you haven't been in school in 2 or 3 decades. And we're bringing everybody together to give you kind of a shared vision, a shared sense of how to enter the academic community. And in English 200 or Comp 200, you are an academic now, and you will be tasked with creating a research paper and with engaging in real scholarship. And that's exciting. It's
Mhm.
not intimidating. It's exciting because now you have the skills. I am confident in it. What do you
And
think?
I think that's true. And the skills that they have, you're going to keep building on those skills. So again, writing is a process. It's never done. You're never done as a writer. I'm not done. Jason's not done. We're all still honing a skill. So I'm excited to see the students continue on and in honing those skills through English 200 and really start going into that more academic research writing space that they've been prompted for through this English 100 journey. So we hope that our students have really enjoyed this season of Compose Yourself, and we're excited to see them again as we continue on this podcast series in English 200, and we'll see all of our students then.
That sounds fun.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Compose Yourself.
Remember, writing is a process, and every word you write brings you closer to becoming the writer you want to be.
We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and that it makes clearer the topics you're exploring in this course. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to your instructor.
Until next time, keep thinking critically
And always compose yourself.